Meghan Markle is a cold, rude, fake woman who is pretending to be someone she isn't, and Prince Harry is finally waking up to the terrible truth. Who says so? Her brother, Thomas Markle Jr. In an exclusive interview with little old me, the Duchess of Sussex's seething sibling said that after what she's put their father through, he wouldn't let her within 50 feet of him. It was my first encounter with Thomas Jr., and I found him to be an open and eminently likeable guy. The kind of straightforward, decent, no-nonsense American I often met when I lived in Los Angeles back in the 90s. And that's why I believe he finds his estranged half-sister's ruthless behaviour so hard to understand. I wouldn't want to be like Meghan. She's the oddball, he declared. Tom believes that Meghan banning their dad from meeting his grandchildren is unforgivably cruel. And he feels for King Charles, who also never gets to see Archie and Lilibet. As we chatted on my talk show, The Political Asylum, Tom revealed for the first time why his dad was never going to attend Meghan and Harry's Windsor wedding in 2018. The story was that the former Hollywood lighting man suffered a heart attack at his home in Mexico and was too sick to travel. But now his son says the decision was already made thanks to an impossible ultimatum issued to him by his difficult daughter. She told him that in order to walk her down the aisle, he would have to cut his other kids, Tom and Samantha, out of his life. Thomas Sr. refused, and the rest is history. Tom Jr. said to me that he wasn't at all surprised by the Hollywood Reporter investigation labelling Meghan a bullying employer who terrifies her staff and reduces grown men to tears because, he says, she is cold, rude and fake. And he predicts the Sussexes' marriage is doomed because Meghan is an actress playing a part. You can only play a character for so long until somebody sees the real you. Harry is finally waking up to what's in his life, said Tom. So, what is in Harry's life? Is it a snobbish fraud who is somehow embarrassed by her down-to-earth American family? A social mountaineer who was never going to allow her folks to mix with British royalty because perhaps they would reveal that she's not exactly from the top echelons of high society? In other news, author Robert Hardman's newly updated book, Charles III, New King, New Court, The Inside Story, lifts the lid on Harry's lies, claiming, for example, that he was informed of the Queen Mother's death in a curt call from a courtier while he was an Eton schoolboy. He was actually in Switzerland skiing with Charles and William. Also, Palace staff remain furious at the petulant prince's contention that they did nothing to help Meghan adapt to her new British life. Far from ignoring her, they went out of their way to make the American actress feel at home, even providing her with extra staff. It is Harry's debatable version of events in his spiteful book Spare that has led to the King's current standpoint in not answering his son's calls or replying to his messages. Charles fears that Harry is a liability because of his tendency to publish accounts of private conversations, some of which, a royal insider told Hardman, have been, shall we say, wrong. Meanwhile, to add to King Charles's problems, there's that other difficult duke, as in the disgraced Duke of York, Prince Andrew, who has been deprived of his £1 million a year allowance, his 10-man security squad, and now faces eviction from the Royal Lodge in Windsor as the sovereign seeks to crack down on his awful brother. So, if things aren't going too well for you, seek solace in this. It could be worse. You could be Randy Andy.
Because a Trump presidency, we are told, could reignite the row over Prince Harry's visa. He's living in California, of course, with the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, and we know that there is a bit of beef between the two men. What is the speculation, and what do you think will actually happen in regard to Donald Trump becoming president again? We know that Prince Harry, having previously denied it, then confessed in his book Spare that he was a user of Class A drugs.
I have a feeling, and that President-elect Trump may have more pressing matters to worry about, yes, whether Prince Harry's status is under question mark. Look, the organisation that is trying to put this into the forefront are clearly thinking they've got a case, but it feels that maybe they are in their own way trying to seek publicity. But at the same time, Prince Harry is there, but I really don't see any change to Prince Harry's status. I think it's easy sort of to have a go and say, look, he's in a vulnerable situation. He might be, but I don't think if President Trump, who, bearing in mind, he has quite an affection for the royal family, he may not be totally enamored by the Duchess of Sussex, but I still think he might actually think that might be a step too far to say that Prince Harry is no longer he's persona non grata in the States. I really don't think there's going to be any change to his status.
Just hard to believe anybody wouldn't be completely enamored with Meghan Markle.
I guess, Jenny, this is my first time really talking to you. One of the questions I have for you is, what is your initial reaction to Harry and Meghan taking Hollywood? Do you feel that Harry and Meghan have been successful in their efforts since stepping down as senior members of the royal family?
Well, you're much better placed to answer that than me, really. But I've taken the view, certainly lately, that they have behaved very well in the past year or two. They've stopped slamming the royal family back here. They've had a comparatively low profile, and I wish them well. They've chosen this life. Harry particularly has given up a lot, obviously, and I hope that the little boy I knew all those years ago, because I knew his mother quite well, is truly happy in this new life. I'm sure he has some regrets, but I'm sick of the witch hunt about Harry and Meghan. And I think we should all just say, thankfully, they've stopped their criticism. They appear to be a happily married couple, and they're getting on with their lives. What the rest of the celebrity world out there make of them, it doesn't really matter, does it?
And Rupert, I'll ask you this too. Are you surprised at all? Because Jenny just made a really good point. They've been behaving themselves quite a bit lately. Were you surprised at all that we did not see any sort of distraction around Prince William's Earthshot? This was all about Prince William.
I think necessity is the mother of invention. I think they've had to take stock and say it got uncomfortable when they were criticising all the book coming out, and just bearing in mind that the paperback version has just come out as well. So I think you have to look at it and say it is a definite PR move to just try and take the heat out of the situation, because it is important, and we've spoken about this before. They've got to build their lives. They've chosen this lifestyle and to move to California, so they've got to put down their roots, and maybe this last year has been that root establishing moment for them. Keep away from the controversy and then say, right, what will 2025 look like, as long as everything goes on, continues to go in the smooth manner that it appears to be at the moment. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think they have made a deliberate course of action to stay quiet.
Yeah, Kinsey, can you tell us, what do you think? What's the view from Hollywood?
Well, that's what we were just going to go into. I mean, you mentioned this idea about a witch hunt, and it's certainly clickbait, right? And there's a new Hollywood Reporter story out calling, it the royal streaming wars. The idea of Prince William, Queen Camilla, and Prince Harry all pursuing these streaming ventures. And I think Jenny's got a point here that I really think that there's room for everybody here. But the article is titled "Disney Plus Picks Up Prince William's Documentary and Royal Streaming War." They write, America now has a choice when it comes to behind-the-scenes access to royals on their streaming platforms. In a notable acquisition, Disney Plus has picked up a two-part documentary featuring Prince William, in which the Prince of Wales and heir to the throne launches his Royal Foundation's Homewards program. I know both of you are familiar with that. You've talked about how moving that was. I believe I heard you say something similar yesterday, Jenny. The Hollywood Reporter notes that between Harry's Netflix deal and Prince William expanding into the documentary space, American consumers have much more access to the royal family than ever before. We saw the Earthshot Prize Awards broadcast around the world on YouTube. Queen Camilla is also participating in an upcoming ITV documentary about domestic abuse titled Her Majesty the Queen Behind Closed Doors. Jenny, have Harry and Meghan managed to taint their brand with too much access or exposure? And if so, does the royal family risk something similar with too much behind-the-scenes content? There's something so special about the mystery that surrounds the royal family.
Now, is there, you see? I think that's a really old-fashioned point of view, you know. Don't let any light in on the magic of the monarchy. It's a load of old nonsense, isn't it? We've moved on, you know. We're in 2024, going 2025, and we want them to be relatable. We want them to be people we can understand and share things with, which I think we saw in William and Catherine's latest video, or Catherine's video really, saying that her chemotherapy treatment was at an end. And that was the most extraordinary film, so personal, so loving. And I think that's what the public want now. We want a royal family who are special, I suppose, in some way, but not so removed that we don't know anything about their lives. So, no, I don't think that there's too much publicity. And also you have to think that the documentaries that Camilla is making and that William has made, they are to highlight social issues that are of great importance. They're not just me saying, here I am, and aren't I wonderful? They have a great purpose, and that's important.
Princess Wales back on form. Every single paper pretty much has this. This is the Sunday Telegraph, the Sun on Sunday, the words back on duty, the Sunday People, Kate's tour de force, and the Mirror also saying that Kate will soon be back at work. What's the latest on Kate's health?
I mean, the good news is the fact that she's out and about. Now, it was always likely that she was going to attend not only last night's Festival of Remembrance service at the Royal Albert Hall, but also attending today at the Cenotaph, where she will be on the balcony overlooking, which tends to be the place for the royal wives, as it were. Obviously, the King and the Prince of Wales will lay wreaths at the Cenotaph later on this morning. So it was always likely. And these are sort of semi-state, well, today's obviously a state occasion, and last night is part of a significant, you know, the royal family, which, you know, the King is the head of the armed forces. So it's a very poignant day for him and other members of the royal family, and an important day. So it's great to see her back. The Prince of Wales has also talked about, hopefully, that they may be able to resume foreign trips together. They haven't done one since 2022. Obviously, this year has been a very difficult year, and Prince of Wales reflected on that in his recent trip to South Africa, saying, you know, he has really, I'm misquoting here, but in essence, he says he's been through the ringer. Is a rather clumsy way of describing it. He referred to it in slightly different terms, but he has obviously had to deal with not only his father's cancer, but his wife's cancer diagnosis as well. So it's been a difficult year, but it's encouraging that she is getting slowly back on the road. We haven't seen much of her in sort of official capacity, but this was one. The next time, I suppose, we might see her in a more out and about might be at that the Christmas Carol service that she has and puts on every year. And, you know, we've seen her play the piano at it before. So it'd just be interesting to see if that's the next time we see her out and about after today.
Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales, Princess Kate, some people call her, she has made her first appearance, was actually last night at the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall. Delighted Caroline Aston is joining me now. She's a royal commentator, and Ricky Phillips is on the line too. He's a military historian. We'll talk a little bit about the significance of today. Caroline, you're very welcome to the programme. Perhaps you could just tell me your joy, as I'm sure many other people have shared as well, to see Princess Catherine part of this very, very important ceremony. We haven't seen the Queen. Camilla is unwell at the moment. The Duke of Kent, of course, very elderly. He sent a military representative to lay his wreath, but great to see Princess Catherine back on the balcony and taking part in this very important event.
Yes, indeed, two high-profile royal events coming back to back. A welcome return for her, looking, as ever, so elegant up there on the balcony overseeing the parade. But of course, what a momentous occasion last night was, I have to say. I thought the stunning choreography, the music, and that marvellous moment when those fast-dwindling number of survivors of the Second World War stood centre stage and were applauded to the echo. Not a dry eye in the house there. And Remembrance yesterday is about remembering everybody, civilian, military, any serviceman, any person whose life has been impacted by war, their health, mental or physical, and the ultimate sacrifice, the giving of life. I thought it was all extremely well done, and every year that long crocodile of ex-servicemen and their descendants grows longer, not shorter. We will remember them.
And it's very interesting as well, Caroline, to remember that the royals themselves have given so much military service over the years.
Indeed, and of course the King takes his role as the head of the armed forces extremely seriously. You'll remember that marvellous moment after the coronation when representatives of all the services were lined up in the grounds at Buckingham Palace and gave 3 rousing cheers to the new monarch. Yes, it's a long and honourable association, and some of the stories of the past service, of past battles fought by our services, are really a great star on the banner of honour, in my opinion.
The King laying his wreath at the cenotaph, stepping back, walking backwards, of course, saluting the cenotaph and remembering those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom.
And now the Prince of Wales will lay his wreath. After the wreath has been laid on behalf of the Queen by her representative.
The Queen, of course, not here as she is unwell, not at the cenotaph, but we'll have Prince William next, Daniel, I believe, who is going to...
That's right. Major Ollie Blunkett laid the Queen's wreath, and now the Prince of Wales. And he will be followed by the Duke of Edinburgh.
Prince Edward is now, of course, the Duke of Edinburgh. He's inherited his father's title. He served, of course, in the military. He is saluting there as well. and there are so many people watching closely, senior members of the government, former prime ministers as well, many members of the military too. Princess Anne now coming up. She, of course, is one of the hardest working royals, perhaps the hardest working royal, who, of course, saw military service herself, Daniel.
Absolutely right, and she's wearing, of course, a naval uniform, and she will be followed by Lieutenant Peter Myborough, who is laying the wreath on behalf of the Duke of Kent. Duke Kent into his late 80s now, but formerly and for many years the Colonel of the Scots Guards, and he was a professional army man.
Well, Simon, as you celebrate Trump's victory, your thoughts? I mean, though I say so myself, he does not have a good view of his sister.
He's monetised his family feud, just like Harry has monetised his. And I think this is all becoming a bit...
He's monetised his family feud. He didn't take a single cent
for
that
by the
interview.
way, I should have stressed this, and I should have stressed this the other night when I interviewed him. He didn't take any money.
Never
Samara
asked for a penny.
spoke to him for a long time, and he's been boiling up to this. He's so fed up with her, so fed up with the way her family is nothing to her, and she's cut them off. And here is Thomas talking about this issue.
In my opinion, she pretends to be this wonderful person, but from numerous accounts, even from friends in Montecito, it's nothing like that. She's cold and rude to people wherever she goes. So, you know, go ahead, live your life.
So, yeah, I mean, it was pretty damning stuff, Simon. I mean, you know, he's hurt. And so, and his father, he's very hurt on behalf of his father. As he spoke to me, he was actually in Mexico, in Rosarito, where Thomas Sr. lives, and he was with his dad, and his dad was watching on. And he was speaking, you know, from the heart. His dad is heartbroken. He wants to see his grandchildren. It is shitty of her not to let him see.
It's very difficult if you feel that you have toxic family in your life, as she does, and we have to respect her view. Then she doesn't want to see.
I don't.
Okay, you don't have to respect her view. If that's what she believes, who are we to demand that she takes children that she doesn't want her father to have anything to do with and see them? I mean, we can have a view on it, but that's all we can do. And, you know, you're saying that he hasn't monetised Thomas Markle Jr.
He hasn't taken...
which I agree with. Why the need to speak to the press all the time?
Because he's upset. He's upset, and he wants people to know that the Markle family are very, very anguished about what she's done. Here's Thomas again.
Why does she want, or did she want, your dad to disown you and Samantha? Why?
It goes back to the young childhood days when even Samantha was witness to the fact that, you know, there was no room for Tom and Samantha in Meghan and Dad's and Doria's life. And, you know, there were several incidences where they made it very clear where they're starting their own business, and Samantha goes, well, what's the business called? Oh, it's the Three Cherubs. And, you know, of course, the Three Cherubs is those three.
Yeah, I mean, they come from a broken family, Samara.
Is that another one of Meghan's failed businesses?
Yeah,
the Three Cherubs?
Yeah, Meghan, for sake, stop starting businesses.
Please.
You're useless at it.
So why does Meghan get the blame for starting the Three Cherubs, and her father and her mother were involved in it as well?
Oh my gosh. Okay, look, the thing that came out of this interview was that, and you spoke about toxic family members, it was revealed that Meghan is the toxic family member here. I mean, in that interview, Tom said that he wouldn't let Meghan within 10 yards of his father, because it is such a travesty what she's done to that man. She's broken him.
Yeah.
And I don't think he danced around that fact. He said, she has ruined our family. All we got was a very normal, hurt family member out of that interview. And it's really terrible that she paints this picture as herself as the victim when she's left this trail of upset family members along the way.
What was interesting, though, Simon, was that, you know, the narrative has always been... And, you know, he did have a heart attack. He wasn't well. He was too unwell to attend the wedding anyway. But what Thomas Jr. is telling me is the decision was already made because she had given her father this horrible ultimatum. You know, unless you don't talk to Thomas Jr. and Samantha ever again, you can't walk me down the aisle. Here's to Thomas Sr. I know you don't like him much, but here's to Thomas Sr. for saying, no, I'm not going to do that. What a thing to say to a father.
I've seen him in interviews. I saw him in an interview he did with Piers on Good Morning Britain, where he was saying, you know, I will not stop talking about her until she agrees to. I will not stop giving interviews. Thomas Markle Senior. So I think this is a very dysfunctional family with all of them throwing. Wait, just let me finish. I think they're throwing accusations around at each other, and perhaps if they're going to do some bridge building, they need to be doing it off camera, behind closed doors, and not trying to point score off one another. That's my own feeling about it, and that doesn't mean I'm sticking up for her, and it doesn't mean that I don't have sympathy for him.
Simon, I'll tell you what's not happened behind closed doors. It was also revealed in that interview that Thomas Markle Sr.'s had 2 further heart attacks this year, I believe.
And stroke as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally on death's door. And a phone call from Meghan, a note, a WhatsApp even, just to ask, how are you? Nothing. Resolute silence from that woman. This is a man who put her through one of the best private schools in California on a working Hollywood salary. It was pretty much nothing. I mean, he gave everything to her. As Tom actually said, you know, she was the golden child of his eye. And the fact that he's had all these health complications and she hasn't even said hello to him is ridiculous.
All right, let's talk about Prince Andrew. I picked my jaw up off the floor when I saw this headline, because typically in our world we don't talk this way. But I saw this headline in the New York Post, but apparently they're picking it up from the Sun. Prince Andrew shoving 2 fingers up at King Charles, dishonoring royals by refusing to leave Royal Lodge. Everybody's heard this story, but I'll briefly recap. According to reports, King Charles would like for Prince Andrew to leave Royal Lodge and perhaps move into Frogmore Cottage on the Windsor estate. According to multiple reports, it's related to finances. That's simply it. It's just an expensive estate. I have a very hard time processing the idea that King Charles would request that Prince Andrew vacate Royal Lodge, and Andrew could have the ability or the audacity to just refuse that. I would like to ask you both, and I'll start with Jenny. Has anyone heard this independently through sources? I have not. Obviously, Christmas might be a good indicator of what's going on behind the scenes, but no one's behavior publicly, reveals any sort of animosity.
No, I don't think there is real animosity. I think there's still a brotherly affection, but I think the king realises this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good to have an idle duke wandering around a huge mansion which is crumbling in places, needs a lot of work for which he has not got the money for the maintenance. He spends his time, it seems, walking around the estate, or riding around on a horse, or sitting in one of its very many rooms, 30 rooms, looking at a big screen, watching aircraft land or take off, because that's his latest thing. I mean, it smacks of the idle aristocratic rich, and he doesn't appear to be rich enough to maintain the property of which he does hold the lease. But that lease has terms and conditions, and those conditions include that it has to be repainted, I think, every 5 years, and it has to be maintained, and security costs, which are reputed to be in the region of £2 million a year. We don't know, but it's thought to be around there. And he has to ask his big brother to pay that because he hasn't got the dosh. Well, I mean, get some self-respect, Andrew.
Rupert, do you have a reaction?
Well, he does need to get some common sense and downsize. But we do know he's arrogant and stubborn, and has been from all his life. And, he is always convinced by his rightness, and he thinks he has a right to stand in there. He's trying to, I suppose, hang on to the one thing he's got left. But the king is just trying to apply some common sense. Move into Frogmore. It's within the security bubble. You then will have half the financial issues. You won't have to worry about the upkeep of Royal Lodge. What they do with it, I don't know. But it does just feel... Look, I haven't had the privilege of walking around Highgrove and discovering the quality of the sewage system at Highgrove, but I haven't also walked around Royal Lodge, so I don't know exactly what state of repair it is. But I imagine he says he's got funds, and that's why he's staying there. But if he's not adhering to the terms of lease, that will be another stick for which the king could beat him on, saying, look, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. If he has any modicum of sense, just move into Frogmore Castle and then everyone will be happy.
Mail on Sunday focusing on how on earth he's able to keep staying in that 30 room or 30 bedroomed Royal Lodge in Windsor. Either way, a sodding big house, which costs a fortune to keep the upkeep, not just the rent, but the upkeep as well. Suddenly, despite having apparently no money, he's suddenly got the money to be able to stay in that lodge. It's been signed off by the king's sort of money people. Where has that money come from?
Well, that's, I think, a question that a lot of people will be asking, because he's been going around pleading poverty a bit. And so suddenly he must have called on some of his friends. Now, the people looking at his money have said it's all above board. So if he says he can afford it, and he's proved, shown the funds are there, but this 55-year-old lease on this 30-room mansion is also a complicated one, because he has to maintain it in the style to which he found it. And it needs a lot of upkeep.
And old buildings cost a lot for the upkeep, don't they, as well? But you mentioned for his friends, but I mean, we know last time he needed some money to help Fergie, the Duchess of Sarah Ferguson, out of some financial difficulties. He went to Jeffrey Epstein, his friendly paedophile friend, to ask him for some money. By the way, after he was convicted of child sex trafficking, extraordinarily. He's got some very questionable friends, many, should we say, overseas business people and others. I mean, is there not any duty of care within the royals to say, well, yes, you've got the funds, but where did they come from, and are they from a suitable person to be bankrolling a British royal?
Well, you'd hope that they've done exactly that, a sort of due diligence on his funds, because he's also got to pay for his security, because he's outside the Windsor Castle bubble. So this is not going to be cheap for him to maintain there. And I suppose a lot of people still head-scratching, why does he need to still live there when he could go for the easy option of basically downsizing into Frogmore Cottage? But if it's been checked out that this is all above board, then in a sense the king is powerless to boot him out, because he has this 55-year-old lease in the house, on the house.
We also know that Prince Charles is quite happy to take money from some questionable sources, carrier bags full of cash from a Qatari politician. That's not a problem for him. I think there were Harrods plastic bags, weren't they? The huge bag containing a load, millions $500,000 or something in euros was handed to the King Charles when he was prince to give to his charity, one of his charities. But nevertheless, the royals perhaps quite happy to keep in with anyone, let's be honest, who can shower them with cash.
Well, unfortunately, the royals do have a habit of people wanting to be associated with them. Look, we've been seeing Donald Trump proudly showing photographs of the royal family, and how proud he was that he was with the king and he's with the queen. So they, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which they do attract people want to be associated.
Donald Trump was at least the democratically elected president of our biggest ally.